Hi all, welcome to Easy Way to Automation. So today we are going to see one more important topic, that is how can we do encoding and decoding in Selenium using Base64. Suppose you are working on a secured application and you don't want to expose your test data to the users, right? So you are automating one application and you don't want to expose your test data to the user. Then what you can do is you can encode your test data, okay, and you can save it in an external data source file. It can be a text file or a properties file or say in an Excel sheet, and you can decode that text, okay, during runtime. So you will fetch your test data and you will decode it during runtime, and you can use it in your application, okay, during runtime. So this is something we are going to see how can we do encoding and decoding in Selenium. So first we are going to see what is Base64. Second, how can we do encoding using Base64. Third, we can see how can we do decoding using Base64. And fourth, we can see how can we use it in Selenium. Okay, so suppose how can we decode, okay, or encode our test data in Selenium. We will see the first point, what is Base64, right? So Base64 is an encoded scheme that converts binary data into text format, into text format, so that encoded encoded textual data can be easily transported, can be easily transported over network, uncorrupted and without any data loss. So uncorrupted and without any data loss. Okay, I have already explained it to you. So basically, if you want to encode your data, okay, and you want the data to be transported over network and you don't want it to be corrupted, okay, and there should not be any data loss, okay. So for that purpose we can use Base64 for encryption and decryption of data, okay. So Base64 is an encoded scheme that converts binary data into text format so that encoded textual data can be easily transported over network uncorrupted and without any data loss. So let's see one example, okay. So I'll go to Eclipse and I'll create a class, okay, and I'll name it as encoded, or I can write encode and decode text, okay, and I'll create a main method inside. Okay, so for example, now I'll create one string variable, okay. I'll create one string variable, say like string username is equal to, say anything, like suppose I'll give it as admin, okay. So this is the string variable, okay, username, and I have initialized it to admin, okay. So now what if I want to encode this text? Okay, so I can write here like encode text. Okay, encode text. So for that, what I can do here is I'll use base64. Okay, so I can write here byte encode byte. I'll just write encode byte is equal to base64 dot. Okay, so basically if you see directly I have written base64 and I'll get one method called as get encoder. Okay, so I'll use this one, get encoder dot encode. We have something called as encode, right? So I'll take the first one and here I have to give the variable, okay, username dot get bytes. Okay, because if you see the return type of it is, okay, one array of byte, right? So I'll take this one. Okay, so now I have got encode byte, but I have to convert it to a string so that I can print it out, right? So I can write over here string encoded text is equal to new string and I'll give this encode byte. Okay, encode byte, right? We can change it to encoded byte. Encoded byte. Okay, it sounds good. Encoded byte. Okay, so now I can print it out using system.out.println. So I'll just write here encoded text value and I can give this variable over here, encoded text. Okay, so let's run this and check what will be the output. Okay, so I'll just run it. If you see, our text value has already been encoded and this is the value. Okay, the real value was admin and after encoding it has become like this. Okay, so now what if I want to decode it? Okay, so let's write program for decoding. So I'll write a decode text. Okay, same thing, I'll write byte. I'll write here decoded byte and I'll use base64 class, base64 dot get decoder dot decode. Okay, and here it is asking for a variable of byte array. Okay, so now I can give this variable encoded byte, right? It has, okay, so it has already been written. Okay, encoded byte, right? So I'll write here string decoded text is equal to new string and I'll give here this decoded byte. Okay, now I can print it out, system.out.println. Okay, I'll write here decoded text value and I can write here decoded text, right? So now let's run this and check the output. See, so after decoding we have got our original value, which is admin, right? Okay, so now we have already seen these 3 points. Okay, what is base64 and how can we do encoding using base64 And how can we do decoding using Base64? It is too easy, isn't it? So now we are left with the fourth point. Okay, so how can we use it in Selenium? Okay, so basically I'll show you. This is one class. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'll make you understand first. So I am taking the browser input from the user. For that I have used scanner class. Okay, I am taking the browser input from the user. Okay, and I am launching browser. Okay, I'm launching browser and I'm navigating to my application under test. Okay, so in our case, we have taken an example of Orange HRM. Okay, the demo website of Orange HRM, and I'm just fetching the page title. Okay, I'm just fetching the page title. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into this particular application, and the credentials, what I will do is first I will encode it, and during runtime I will decode it. Okay, so I will show you that one. So what I can do here is I'll go to this particular application. Okay, so this is our application. Okay, so if you see the username is admin and the password is admin123. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just inspect the web elements which are required for logging into this particular application. Okay, so first we will inspect the username, then password and the sign in button. Okay, so I'll just inspect it. So if you see it has name attribute and its value is username, right? So I'll take this one. So after this I can write, okay, so login to Orange HRM application. Okay, so I'll just write here driver dot find element by dot name, and the value is username, right? The value is username. Okay, if you see the value is username, then I'll just write dot send keys, and as of now I am hard coding the value admin. Okay, then I'll write here driver dot find element by dot name. So let's inspect the password web element. Okay, if you see it has also name attribute and its value is password, right? So I'll take this one dot send keys. I'll give here the password which is admin123, right? So I'll just write here admin123. Okay, got it. After that I have to click on login button or sign on button, driver.find element. This is my login button, so I'll just inspect it again. And if you see there is no ID, there is no name, so what I can do is I have to write XPath for it. So I'll just write here, it's a button. Okay, so we have got like one matching node, but I can just write here normalize space is equal to login. Okay, so why I have used normalize space, like if there is any space, so that it will avoid it. Okay, so if you want to know more about XPath, how to write XPath, I have a separate video tutorial for that. You can go through that. Okay, so I can write here by dot XPath, and I'll give here dot click, right? Okay, after that I'll give some static wait just to check whether I'm able to log in or not. Okay, and after that I'm closing my application. Okay, and I am killing the driver instance also, web driver instance. Okay, uh, so let's run it and check whether it is working as expected or not. Okay, so it has asked for an input, so I'll just give here Chrome. Okay, so it is going to open Chrome browser and invoke Orange HRM application, and it will do the login. Okay, it is working perfectly. So now what I will do is I'll change this class a little bit. Okay, so to make it robust, what I can do here is I'll create like few methods over here. Okay, so basically I can write here, okay, public, the return type will be string. So get encoded text. Okay, get encoded text, and I'll just write here string value. Okay, so the parameter is a value of string type. Okay, so I have created this method get encoded text, and I'll copy this code and I'll paste it over here. Okay, and what I'll do here is I'll return this text value. Okay, encoded text value, because the return type is string, so I'll just return it. So I'll just write here return encoded text. Okay, and instead of username I'll just give it here say like value. Okay, because I am passing it as a parameter, right? Similarly, I'll create one more method like say public string get decoded text. Okay, and here also I'll pass a variable of string type. Okay, and I'll copy the code from here. Okay, and I'll paste it over here. Okay, and this has to be value dot get bytes. Okay, get bytes, and I'll return the decoded text. Return decoded text. Okay, because the return type is of string type. Okay, and I'll delete this one. This is not required. Okay, okay, so I did the indentation. So I'll remove this extra curly bracket. Okay, so I have modified my class file like this. Okay, so what I will do first, I have to encode. Okay, so first I have to encode it. Okay, so what I will do here is I'll call this method to encode my username and password. Okay, so let's do that first. Okay, so as of now what I'm going to do here is, okay, so before I log into this application, right, just to show you I'm doing this. Okay, so I'll just write here like encode the user credentials. Okay, credentials. For example, I'll just write here like string username and string password. Okay, because I know, okay, what is the value of my username, what is the value of my password. So I'll just write here string username is equal to this admin. Okay, but in the real time what you can do is first you can encode it. Okay, and you can place it in an external data source file that I will show you. Okay, so now I'll just write here string password is equal to admin123. Okay, so now what I will do, I'll call that method. Okay, so probably what I can do is I'll make it as static so that we can directly call it. Okay, I'll make it as static so that with the class name we can call it, no need to create any object. Okay, so I'll just write here encode and decode text.java. Okay, so I'll just write here encode and decode text dot get encoded text. Okay, first we have to encode it, right? So I'll pass first username. Okay, so this will be our username, for example. Okay, I'll just write here string. I'll just write here encoded username. Encoded username. Okay, then I'll just write here string encoded password is equal to, I'll use this class name dot method name get encoded text. I'll pass here password. Correct. Now suppose I want to print them. Obviously it will print here also get encoded text. So it will get printed. Okay. So probably what we can do here is we can delete this statement from here because it will only encode and it will return you the value. Okay. I am deleting this statement from here. Okay, then I'll write something like this system.out.println. Okay, I'll just write here encoded username. Okay, I'll just write here this encoded username. Okay, then I'll give here encoded password. Encoded password. Okay, that's fine. So let's run it once again. So right here Chrome. It has invoked our application under test. Now it is logging in. We have already seen this. Now the login is successful. Okay, so we have got our encoded username and encoded password. Now what I can do here is, I have already told you this, right? So once you get your encoded test data, you can save it in an external data source file. So for now, I am taking an example of a properties file. So what I'll do here is, inside this, I'll create something called as, I'll create one folder. Okay, so I'll create one folder and I'll name it as a config. Okay, inside this I'll create one properties file. So I'll create a file and I'll name it as say test data dot properties. Okay, and I'll write here username and password. Okay, so now what is my encoded username? I'll go to console. So this is my encoded username. So I'll take this one and write it over here. This is my encoded username and this is my encoded password. Okay. So now my properties file is ready. Now what I have to do is I have to create a class file which will read this properties file. Okay. So I'll create something like this. Okay. So what I'll do is here only I will create, or inside main Java, right? src main Java, you can create something called as, say, I'll create something called as say test utility. I'll create test utility. Okay. And inside this, okay, I'll create something called as one class file. So I'll create properties reader. Okay, properties reader. Okay, so now I'll create one method like public properties. Okay, so I'll just write here get properties, or I can write here get config properties. Okay, get config properties. Okay, so method name can be any name. Okay, as per your convenience, you can give the method name. Okay, so I have to import this properties which comes from java.util package, right? Okay, so I'll create one object of properties. Properties p is equal to new properties. Okay, so inside this I'll just write file is equal to new file. So I have to locate where my properties file is there. Okay, so I have to locate my test data.properties file. Where is it? So I'll just write here system.get property. I'll just write here user.dir. Okay, user.dir. So it locates up to your root project folder. Okay, so after that I have something called as src main Java, right? So I'll just write here src main Java. After that I have something called as test utility. After that I have this, right? Sorry, not here. src main resources. Okay, src main resources. After that we have something called as config, then test data dot properties. Okay, fair enough. I have to import this file class. That's fine. Okay, so now what I have to do is, now I have located, okay, where my properties file is. Correct. So now I have to use file reader class to read it. So I'll just write here file reader. Reader is equal to, I'll write here new file reader. Okay, so I have created one object of file reader, right? So it calls the file reader constructor. So it's a parameterized constructor and it takes parameter of this file type. Okay, so I'll just give it over here file. Okay, now I will import this file reader class. Okay, so it will throw IO exception. So what I will do is I'll use try catch over here. So try, and I'll give it over here catch. I'll give here exception ex, and I'll just write here system.out.println. Okay, exception occurred while reading properties file, and I'll just print the exception at ex.getMessage. So here the return type is properties, so I have to return it. Okay, so I'll just write here p.load, the second option, and I'll give reader. Okay, and after that I'll return p. Okay, so this class we have created to read our testdata.properties file. Okay, so now what I will do here is I'll go to this login functionality. Okay, so we have got our encoded test data, so this is not required at all, so I'll just comment these lines. Okay, so what I can do here is now string username is equal to, I'll just write here same thing. Okay, encode and decode text, encode and decode text dot get decoded text. Okay, and here we have to give the value, and value where we are going to fetch, we are going to fetch it from the testdata.properties file. Okay, so for that what I have to do, I have to create an object of properties reader. So directly I can write here new properties reader. Okay, so I have to import this class. Okay, so I'll just write here dot get config properties. Okay, dot get property, and what is my value? My value is username. Okay, so I'll just give it like this, username. Okay, okay, I have already used here, so I'll just comment it. Okay, not required. String username, and same thing I can write it for password. Okay, so if you want to check whether you are able to fetch it from the properties file or not, that also you can check. So let's do that first. Okay, so instead of this, so first I'll write it like this. Let me uncomment this line. Okay, so I'll just write it over here. Uh, new properties reader. Suppose you want to know whether you want to retrieve it from the properties file or not. Dot get config properties dot get property username, right? Because if you see, so this is our key and this is our value. Okay, username and password. Okay, so let's go there. Username. Okay, and after that same thing I'll write it over here. Correct. So now if you want to print it, so I'll just write a system.out.println, and I'll just print it like this. Username and this will be our password. Let's check. Okay, so let's run it. So here I am only checking whether I am able to retrieve my test data from the properties file or not. Okay, we will see it in the console window. See, I am able to retrieve. Okay, but here I have to give password. Sorry. Okay, password. Okay, it's okay. So we have seen that we are able to retrieve it. Okay, so just because I have given username over here, that's why we got the same value. Okay, so it was my mistake. So now we are able to fetch successfully our test data from the properties file. Okay, so now what I will do is I'll use this one. Okay, so here what I am doing, like here I am calling this method. Okay, get decoded text. Okay, if you go to this particular method, it is expecting one string value to be passed as a parameter, right? So what I am doing here is I am fetching my test data from the properties file. Okay, and it will be considered as a string, and I am passing it as a parameter. And what it will do, like it will return me the decoded text. Okay, so if you go to this particular method, it will take that string value, it will convert it to bytes. Okay, and it will decode it. Okay, after decoding, what it will do, we have got this decoded byte, right? Again it will convert it to a string value and it will return it as a string. Okay, so now we have got this. So instead of hard coding value, so directly I can write here username, and here I'll give password. Okay, so here I am not exposing my test data, because if you see, these are like encoded values. Okay, nobody will get to know, okay, what is my username and what is my password, because during runtime only I am decoding my test data, and directly I am using it in my application. Okay, username and password. So let's see. So now I'll run it. Again, I'll give here Chrome. Let's see whether we will be able to log in successfully or not. Yes, login is successful. Okay, so this is how we can do encoding and decoding in Selenium. Okay, so we have seen the fourth point as well. How can we use it in Selenium? Okay, how can we do encoding and decoding in Selenium using Base64? I hope you found this video useful. If you like it, please subscribe to my channel to learn Selenium step by step. Thank you. Thank you for watching.